All right, let's dive right in. If you've ever stared at that blinking cursor in a terminal, your finger hovering over the enter key, about to run your very first Nmap scan, you know the feeling. It's this wild mix of excitement and, let's be honest, pure terror. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain on that first scan and turn that fear into a focused skill.
I mean, come on, we've all been there, right? That moment the text just starts flying by, listing open ports. It feels like you've tripped a silent alarm or stumbled into a place you shouldn't be, even when it's just your own lab machine. It's practically a rite of passage.
And these are the two big questions that just freeze every beginner in their tracks. And you are not alone in thinking this. You're worried about crossing some invisible line, or that one wrong command is going to crash a server, or maybe send up a giant flare to every sysadmin in a 5-mile radius. The good news? We can tackle both of these fears, and it all starts with a little bit of structure.
So let's flip this idea on its head for a second. That anxiety you feel? That's not a sign you're doing something wrong. It's actually a signal that your instincts are spot on. It shows you have a healthy respect for the power of the tools you're learning.
And this right here is the key. That little jump in your heart rate, it means you get it. You understand that networks have rules, boundaries, and consequences. That's the very foundation of being an ethical professional. Your caution isn't a weakness, it's a strength, and we're going to build on it.
So how do we take that healthy fear and turn it into something productive? Well, before we type a single character of an Nmap command, we have to talk about the most important, the most critical, non-negotiable first step, building yourself a safe, isolated lab. This is the place where every single mistake becomes a lesson, not an incident report.
And I'm serious here. Don't be that person. You hear the horror stories. The temptation to just, see what's out there on a live network, it's huge. But the fallout can be massive, even career-ending. Your lab, your playground, that's where you control everything. You get to be both the attacker and the target.
And what's awesome is that getting this set up doesn't have to cost you a thing. Seriously, for your first few weeks, just stick with that top option, local VMs only. All you need to do is install something like VirtualBox, grab a Kali Linux virtual machine, find a vulnerable practice machine, and stick them both on their own private network. That's it. Down the road, sure, you can explore cloud stuff or paid labs, but right now, a local setup is all you need.
So what's really happening when you run Nmap? It's not some kind of dark hacker magic. At its core, Nmap is basically a detective. And it's really only trying to answer 3 fundamental questions about the targets you pointed at. Once you get these questions, the output suddenly makes a whole lot more sense.
Question number 1 is simply, who am I talking to? These are the hosts. In your lab, this is just going to be the specific IP address of your target virtual machine. Pretty simple, right? Nmap just needs to know where to look.
Question 2, what doors are open? These are the ports. Just think of a server as a giant building with literally thousands of numbered doors. You've got port 80, which is like the main entrance for web traffic. Port 22 is kind of a secure side door for remote logins. Nmap is basically your security guard, walking down the hall and checking every single door to see if it's locked or unlocked.
And that leads to question 3. What's happening behind those open doors? These are the services. See, just because a door is unlocked doesn't really tell you what's inside the room. An open port 80 probably means there's a web server, a service, running on the other side, just waiting to hand you a web page. Nmap tries to peek through the doorway and identify exactly what software is running in there.
Now you're going to see a few different results, but for a beginner, these 2 are the big ones. Open is pretty straightforward. It means the service is there, listening, ready to talk. But filtered, that's where things get interesting. Filtered usually means there's a firewall standing in your way, blocking your scan. Nmap can't tell if the door is open or closed behind it. And you know what? That suddenly makes the firewall itself the most interesting thing to investigate.
Look, you've probably seen those super complex, mile-long Nmap commands online. Forget about those for now. To get started, you really only need to master these 3. Think of them as your core toolkit: a fast scan for a quick first look, a baseline scan to get the details, and a subnet scan just to see what's even alive on your little practice network. Okay, so you've run the scan, you've got a screen full of text. Now what? You see, the real skill isn't just running the tool. It's about turning all that raw data, all that noise, into an actual plan. This is the moment you stop just pushing buttons and start thinking like a real investigator.
A fantastic way to do this is to think in tiers. Tier 1 is your quick hello, right? A fast scan just to get the lay of the land without making a lot of noise. Tier 2 is your standard investigation, where you dig a little deeper on the interesting stuff. And Tier 3, that's for when you found something that looks really juicy and you want to do a full deep dive.
This approach keeps your scanning organized and purposeful.
This is such a brilliant way to put it. This is the professional mindset. You're not trying to find the most open ports, you're looking for the most interesting open port. The output isn't a high score of how many things you found, it's a treasure map that points you toward the single most promising place to look next.
So here's how it all comes together in a simple, repeatable workflow. Step 1, and this is crucial, define your scope. Write down the exact IPs you're allowed to touch. Step 2, run your initial scans. Step 3, go through the results and tag what looks interesting. Web servers, remote access, databases. Step 4, pivot. Nmap finds the doors, now you use other tools like a web browser to actually look inside. And the most important step of all, Step 5, document everything. This is how you really learn.
Okay, this all sounds great in theory, but how do you actually get started? The good news is, you don't need to block out 8-hour marathon study sessions. All you really need is a simple, consistent plan to build that momentum day by day.
And here it is, a 1-week plan that is totally manageable. Day 1, you just set up your lab. Day 2, run that first quick scan. Day 3, run the more detailed one, and you just compare the two. See how each day builds on the last? By the end of the week, you'll have gone through a complete recon process and even written up your findings. Consistent, short sessions, that is the secret to building real, lasting skills.
Let's wrap this up with the most important lesson of all, the one that will keep you out of trouble and build your career. It's not the sexiest part of hacking, but it's the most critical. The question, am I allowed to scan this, is always the first one you ask. It is never, ever an afterthought.
And please remember this. The first time you find a vulnerability, it might feel like a lucky break. But when you write down exactly how you found it, what you tried next, and what happened, it's not luck anymore. It's a process. It's a repeatable skill. Your notes are the most powerful tool you have, period.
So, that's the roadmap. The fear is totally normal, the tools are much simpler than they look, and the path to getting good is clear. The only question left is the one right there on your screen. So go set up that lab, run that scan, and find out,